Hello and welcome. This is Lisa Jones, and you are listening to the Exploring Death podcast. Hello and welcome to the Exploring Death podcast. Today, I have Rick Randall with me. Rick Randall is an innovative thought leader in the estate planning process. He was an early advocate of living trust planning, but soon developed a real concern about how traditional estate planning was and is approached. His wealth reception planning movement emphasizes a lifetime relationship with clients and their families. Well, that's great. Well, I was hoping to do a little readings now that we've gone to that kind of, and just see what the cards have to say about estate planning. What do you think about that? I've never done a card reading on estate planning.
That's good.
Well, let's just see what cards come up and what kind of the intuitive information that comes through is going to say here. Oh my goodness, I love it already. I can already see. So I'll the first card is usually the blockage card, or that's what we call it, and it's simplicity. And I think it's so true. I think that people feel like it's so complicated. It's beyond their ability to deal with. That's where we all get blocked, and I've got complete chills running through my body, which is generally a sign of truth. Wouldn't you agree that people just get overwhelmed because they think it's so much maybe bigger than it really is? Or
it is. And the phrase we use is that our goal is the simplicity on the other side of complexity. And so you have to kind of fight through the complexity, but once you do, it becomes much simpler. And those are the things you hang on to. So as much as they can lay off to us, and we try to do it through stories, it works. And so that, I can relate to that a lot. It's a big goal for us.
Right. Well, I love that. I think that's just right on. So then the action is light. And again, I think what you're doing is you're providing people with the opportunity to really shine their light about how they want the end to be. It's also a metaphor of they're going to the light, right? It's all about the ending and how they want it to unfold. And so what a beautiful opportunity that you're giving people. Really, I feel like your process is so much more personal and about the person rather than about the documentation. And that's just part of it. Like you said, that's the complexity that has to the legalities that have to be taken care of, but allowing people to really shine their light and show, it's another thing that's coming through is the sun, and how, you want to shine your light on your loved ones once you're gone. And this is an opportunity by doing your estate planning, and especially doing it early and often, as we'll talk about your process also, that continuous updating, which I think is just brilliant. It really, it lights me up just talking about the idea that this is possible. So I love that. I love that's the action. And then the final is faith. That's the outcome, is the faith that you just trust that this is the process. And the more you can trust that by taking care of your affairs, as people say, it will really free you to allow you to live more fully and to not have that hanging over your head. There's nothing worse than having something that you should do just nagging at you. Even if it's not something that's really conscious in your mind, deep down, we all know that this is something that needs to be attended to. And it's that fear that keeps people from really stepping up and doing it. But if you can just ultimately have that faith and know that once you've got it taken care of, then you can just breathe a sigh of relief and more fully live your life, which I think we've talked about as well, that's part of what you've seen or experienced with your clients, is once they've done this work, it really frees them up to live more fully.
I agree.
So great. Any thoughts on the reading or?
Well, it's a great summary. So I wasn't sure where it would go, but I agree. You've got to get through the simplicity first. I like the order, because if you don't get to the clarity of what you're trying to accomplish, it makes it harder to do. And bringing the light, sometimes it's disputes, bringing out whatever it is that the issues are. The word processing people, and this is kind of, I don't know what the right word of it is, but it sounds cooperative. I'll put anything in there that you want, but it doesn't really help you. And so to be able to be with people so that they can fight through whatever those issues are, if you shine the light on what the issue is, people can solve it. And they solve their own problems. There's a myth that the professional solves the problem. So you help people come up with whatever it is that's concerning them and fixing it. So I like that, the shining of the light. And then the faith, I wrote down something you said, which is trust the process. And we tell them that you, in our process, which you've alluded to a little bit with, most of our clients update their plans every couple years. It's entirely different if you take a look, more of a snapshot, than that you have to know the whole movie and how it's supposed to end. So if you trust the process, you'll continually get closer and closer, and it will feel better and better. That in little, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time. That you can do. And, at whatever time, when our time is there, then, okay, time's up, and that's how far we got. But that it has to be better than trying to write in one sitting everything that you want to do, say, have happen, cover all your finances in advance, think of everything in the world. It's just too overwhelming. Even if you get past that initial little, I'm afraid to talk about it or don't want to talk about it. So I think the simplicity is tied in with it. And I think you can have good faith that the outcome will be right if everybody gets in there. So I think it's great.
Well, wonderful. Yeah. And I like your idea that the light, shining the light on whatever issues or problems there might be too. I think, for example, in my case where my dad was concerned, I mean, if we could have had a more open and honest discussion about what it is he was trying to accomplish and really then what my brothers and my concern were, I think that just would have been such a better outcome for everybody. And his death was sudden. He went in for surgery and had a complication. So it was so, just unexpected when he did die, that we just never had that opportunity, where sometimes when you do have a terminal illness, you have a little more time to maybe face that. But again, a lot of people don't even want to go there, even when they see the end coming. So we had talked a little bit about the dash, and some people might be familiar with that. Some people might not, but tell the listeners about that phrase.
It's a poem called The Dash. It's by Linda Ellis. And it's one of the things that we do from time to time as part of the wealth reception is if you listen to that poem, and there's different things. I've been able to put some to music, and you just read it. And it's powerful in a group setting in particular. It's great when you just read it, but in a group setting, the focus is there's the date at the beginning when you're born and the date that you die, but what it's really about is the dash. And the punchline of it is, what will you be proud of what they say about your dash? And that, especially in the little chunks, is very motivating for many people. And so some will relate to it like everything, some will not. But that's where the dash has helped in our practice, just to open people a bit, that the phrase is, it's not about the cars and the cash, that's what people think of, is the stuff. Which leads me to another thing, and that's about the stuff. There's only two types: special stuff and junk. And when somebody dies, most of it is junk. People will not write down the special stuff, like this certain thing goes to this certain person, and the fights we know break out over the stuff. And now you and I are into it, and so we're already in a fight, so I may as well sue you over the money too. But it's unbelievable how much starts over little bitty things that could be handled. And so we've done the dash at programs where we try to end it with, maybe I can't do the whole list, but write down 3 things that where they're supposed to go. And then I find that they'll end up with 6 or 7. And that's, at least those are handled and off the table. And usually the families are there together. And so we found all kinds of things with that. So we use the dash, and I think that's a good thing. So if they have a nice recorded one that you can buy on a CD through a lot of the different places, successories type of places. And so it's out there. And so I think that's a really nice summary in this area.
That's great. That's great. Well, and let's wrap this up by talking about your, I guess it's the empowered legacy, or, the helping people. What I loved about it especially is that it's built in to be updated every couple years, where I know, again, from my own experience, once my husband and I had our estate plans put together and we wanted to make just a simple change, it was going to cost us thousands of dollars to make that one simple change. And we just said, oh, forget it. And then, it turned out the person I was trying to remove ended up dying. So it all worked out anyway, but I don't think that's the right way to approach this.
It's been interesting. And for the folks listening in, I tried to defend the traditional, I'm not in that camp, but I tried to explain to Lisa why that was the case. Is all I want to do is take a name out and put a name in. But when the attorney does it, they assume responsibility for everything else in the plan. And so they needed to give you an entirely new plan, even though you only asked for one little, thing you could do on a word processor. And it just doesn't compute to people. So those are built in, the empowered legacy, a part of it. And it's pretty seductive. What happens is it will make sense to you to come in, because the laws will change every couple years. Don't know what they are, but okay, that makes sense. Actually, it sneaks up on you as you get the education. We keep repeating, get the family trained, get the family together, have these conversations. That's the real power of it. And so over time, just trying to keep it current. So you update for life, changes in your life, and we just have a little sheet, things that you need to tell the estate plan attorney. Law, which is our job, so we'll update on that. And the third L is learning. And with the learning, then the concepts get better. And certainly I've grown. And so every year I have new books and new tapes and new approaches. And we share them. And all of these things like that we've talked about in this call, there are client stories that you haven't heard since we haven't been together for a couple of years. And these are the things going on. And here's what we learned from it. So you don't have to learn in the school of hard knocks. We can all get better together. So it's other people's learning is the best. So let them have the problem and we'll learn to avoid it. And in a group that does happen. So the empowered legacy, and another concept I've actually already shared is the purposeful trust. That's so there's a lot about our why out there today, or our purpose. And there are some folks that we work with that are very good. The risk, again, is the blank sheet that we already talked about. But what's interesting is if you, the man's name is John Warnick. He does a tremendous job with this, John A. And what he's found is they're just like, if you think of word processing, just a little text box. And we put a couple of thoughts of yours in there and we italicize it. Someone put it in a different color. What he's found is when the adult children come in for the inheritance, they do look through the trust. Now, in my practice, I try to shield you from that. There's too much of that legal mumbo jumbo. But he likes to put it right in the document. And his experience is they'll flip from one of those text boxes to the next to find out what parent said. And they'll say, oh, that was dad. You could tell it was in his words. Doesn't have to be fancy. And so we take the legalese and match it up to more your plain English. And that's what a purposeful trust is. And it's been really effective for people if they'll do it. So I guess, Lisa, at the end is, you can do so much more, I guess, is my message. But I want to say you don't have to do that, because the standard stuff that we would put in, we've already got all that learning from all the other folks. And so you kind of, it's like a stream coming down. That water's been flowing for a long time. You just jump in and it'll carry you. So you can start swimming later if you want, or just let everybody else carry you. That's what's been fun for me to watch. And the least likely people seem to come up with I mentioned the engineers, with the emotional letter comes out of left field. And it's just been great. And I think the clients experience it together in this system. And that helps a lot.
That's amazing. I love it. Well, tell people we'll have the links below on my website, but also just in general, how can people get a hold of you? And
well, probably the best way, there's two websites. I think probably for me, just an email to me is probably the best way, and I'll route it. And the reason for that, our practice is national, and then I've got people around. Some people, like with you, want to work with you. Some people want to work with somebody that they know would have a similar approach. And so our national and network attorneys are like that. So if you just write me, it's Rick, R-I-C-K, at lifespanusa.com, and I'll route it to the right way. And the other is NEPA, National Network Estate Planning Attorneys, NNEPA.com. There's a website, and there's a contact page there where you can say interested in learning more.
Fabulous. Well, Rick, this has been so educational. I loved all your stories, and I know that our listeners are going to benefit so much from this. And I just want to encourage everyone listening to reach out to Rick or go to that website and take the next step. I think that's the other part, right? It's like you said, eating an elephant. Just take the next step and just let it guide you toward ultimately getting done what you really need to get done.
Say one more quick thing, and that is, because that's so hard, we try really hard to go through so that people know what they can do, which means we have to extend a little bit first. And then we find out who you are, and then we quote the fee, and then we start drafting. And the reason for that order is I found everyone will hold back. They don't know what they can do, number one, and that's our job to teach the people. And number two, I'm afraid of what it would cost. So I don't know what's fancy or what's expensive, so I won't bring that up. And so in our process, there's a development phase that's at no charge. And then we have a sense of what we're doing. Here's what the charge would be. And we know how long it takes, and we do have those computers. So we're able to do it.
Well, I love it. So therefore, there's no reason not to reach out and just find out at least what the options are right now for you, and to make sure that you start down this path of getting your affairs in order, so to speak, and do it at a time when you aren't under the crunch or under the gun, shall we say, of having to get it done.
Agreed.
All right, Rick. Well, you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for taking the time. It's been amazing.
Thank you for having me. You made it easy.
Okay, great. And thank you so much for listening to the Exploring Death podcast. And until next time, aloha.